Hey, as we kick off our series called It's Complicated, we're talking about relationships because how many of you already know out of experience that relationships can be complicated? Yeah, don't raise it too high. Not because of the person beside you, but relationships can be complicated. The only people I find it to be not complicated for are engaged couples, where everything is amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have never fought in our life. We're good. And it's like, and I'm telling you, when I do premarital counseling for people, and I'm like, so tell me why you guys want to get married. It never fails. It always starts off with this one, because we're in love. And it's like, okay, that's stupid. You know, listen, don't come to me for counseling. I'm just telling you right now, because we're in love. Well, that's stupid. And now I'm like, okay, so tell me a little bit more. Why are you guys in love? We're just so compatible. Like, we just never argue. We're just so good. And I encourage people, like, you just got to know me. If you're a guest here, it is what it is kind of deal with me. But I'm just like, listen, I think you guys should have, like, one real good argument first. And then find out if you really want to marry each other. We're like, well, we just get along so well. And I'm just going to tell you, relationships are complicated. Whether it is a working relationship, whether it's a marriage relationship, whether it's about being single, but relationships in general can be complicated. However, that's why you find out that there are over 2,500 dating sites that are out now. Because relationships can become, and that's just in the U.S. That's not like if you want, like, to marry somebody from Russia or something like that. Like, that's just here. And so 2,500, it's never been easier to fall in love. But it's never been harder to stay in love. It's never been easier because now you have the internet. Back in my day, oh, here we go. It was a love note with check boxes. Do you like me? Yes. No, and if you were insecure, you added a third one, maybe. Listen, I didn't give any room for maybes. It was like, it's either yes or no, what you want. You get all this. And Shannon rocked yes when we were in our 20s. Because I wrote her a love note. I did not write her a love note. Relationships are complicated just because it involves people, in-laws and outlaws and all kinds of things when it comes to relationships. But, none of us go into a marriage or a relationship or a job thinking, how can I get fired? How can I get divorced? I really can't wait to jack this relationship up. This is like the highlight of my life. Like, girl, you are amazing, but I am going to ruin your life. Yes. Like, none of us go into a relationship like that. You know what we do go into the relationship? Here's how we do. We go into the relationship just with this high expectation, like, I cannot wait to grow old with you. I can't wait for us to walk hand in hand down the nursing center hallway on our way to dinner together at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I can't wait to cuddle with you in the nursing home bed. Wait, that's the Notebook. Many of us, that's what we're thinking. Like, we want that kind of relationship. And the reason that we all fall in love and we want to stay there is because it's the original design that God had created for every single one of us. That God had created for us to be in relationship with people. From the very beginning of creation, the narrative in the Bible is that God realized it wasn't good for us to be alone. So he said, listen, it's not good for Adam to be alone. So he created a helper, a helpmate, who was Eve. And then sin comes in and brokenness came in. And what happens is it made falling in love, staying together, very hard, very difficult, and very complicated. I always say this, if you think about the very beginning of the book of Genesis, God creates the heaven and earth. He creates the stars, the moon, the sky. He creates the water. And we have all that. And the Bible says, after he created it, it was good. Then all of a sudden, the Bible says then the enemy comes in and his first plan of attack was the relationship between Adam and Eve. And his whole goal was to try to get in between the two of them, to separate, to cause division. And he comes in and he begins to tempt Eve with the fruit and eating the unforbidden fruit and all those things. And I find that to be very true even still today, that the number one plan of attack of the enemy is to enter into relationships and to create division. God is trying to create unity, but the enemy will try to come in and create division. So that's why in our series we hope to uncomplicate some aspects of relationships. We're going to cover next week. It's going to be fun. You don't want to miss it. My wife and I, we're gonna tag team preach this bad boy. It's going to be fun. If you were here last time we preached, it was amazing. It was amazing. If you ever want to just see me sit there, come on out. It'll be good. The one with wisdom will be speaking the most. My wife. And so, but we'll do some stuff together. It'll be good. We're going to talk about marriage. Week 3, we're going to talk about something that every relationship, whether working relationship, whether it's dating single, whether it's just friendship, marriage, whatever it is, every relationship has encountered this one thing, and that is called conflict. How do you resolve conflict? I mean, many of us operate differently when it comes to conflict. And so we're going to talk about that. And then week 4, we're going to talk about divorce, how to overcome and move forward. When kind of thinking through and strategizing for this series, this was one of those things that it either came down to talking about sex or divorce. My wife was like, you should talk about divorce. Don't talk about sex. And so it was one of those things. And it's like, listen, not a lot of people are talking about it, but many people are walking through it. So why not talk about what people are facing and have a real honest conversation and say, hey, how do we approach this from a biblical standpoint? How do we walk through this, overcome it, and begin to take steps forward from the things that we've experienced in life? And so I want to kind of hit it from that part. But today, here's what we're going to talk about. How do we have a lasting relationship? How do we have a lasting relationship? Why is it so difficult? Why is it harder now to have a lasting relationship than it ever has before, with the divorce rates constantly climbing? I believe one of the reasons, I'm going to give you 4 this morning just to kind of set the tone for our series. Number 1 is because we have negative experiences. We all walk into a relationship with a past, with negative experiences, whether it's from our parents' relationship, whether it was somebody walked out on us, maybe it was a failed marriage that we had, maybe it was from our parents' failed marriage, but maybe there's some things that we've walked through. And so what happens is we bring this baggage into our current relationship, and for some of us, we never deal with it. And if you never deal with your past, you're constantly bringing it into your future, and it's still there. You're still carrying the baggage around, the weight around. You're constantly having that with you. And the truth is, very few people have seen what a healthy relationship looks like. They very seldom have had it modeled before them. And so what happens is then we are ill-equipped for what a real, lasting, loving relationship looks like. There's a thing where a bunch of motivational speakers stood in front of students in elementary, junior high, and high school, and they did the whole take a step challenge. And when it got to the part where, hey, if you know somebody who's been divorced, take a step. And you see the whole crowd of people who have all known somebody who's walked through the painful process of a divorce. It's something that has become common in our day. So much so, I was having a conversation with somebody just the other week, and I had to ask the question. Oh, man, they were telling me a story. I was like, that's cool, and they were kind of processing some stuff, and I said, wow, okay. Hey, so is mom and dad in the same, you have to ask that question now. Is mom and dad in the same house together? Yes. Okay, so let's talk about that. Okay, so mom and dad aren't. So you have to kind of preface oftentimes with that question because it's so common nowadays that people are walking through this. And how do we walk through it together? How do we walk through that? We're going to talk about that on week 4, on how to overcome and how the church can be a blessing into people's lives. Can I just say this? I think for far too long, the church has looked down on people who have been divorced and not known the story, not known the situation. And you know what the Bible actually calls that? Judgmental. And isn't it interesting that a place where people should be able to come and to find peace and to find healing, to find restoration, to find hope, oftentimes when people walking through divorce walk into a church and find judgmental people without even knowing the story. And I want to tell you, man, if that's your story, you came to a great place. For us, there's no judgment. There's no stones being thrown. Open arms, willing to love you, willing to help you walk through whatever you're walking through. Because the goal is that now you can take a great experience or that negative experience, turn it into something great for that next relationship that you walk into. And you can have that lasting relationship, not this negative past, not this negative experience that you're bringing into this new relationship that maybe you find yourself in or that eventually you will find yourself in. But for some of us here today, that's not your story. You're happily married, you're excited. But what happens oftentimes is we bring these negative experiences into our relationship, and oftentimes it can pull us back, it can pull us down. And so what do we do from that? Well, I want to challenge and encourage you each week, make sure that you're coming. We have something for everybody as we walk through how to uncomplicate relationships, how to make our marriage better, our relationships better, how to have a lasting, loving relationship. Here's another reason that lasting relationships and staying in love is so difficult. Number 2 is this: we're not whole ourselves. May I just say this? If you're not content with yourself, if you're not happy with yourself, if you're not, pleased with where you are in life, and I just tell you, marrying somebody else is not going to make you happy, content, or enjoying yourself any better. You have to learn how to make yourself content. You've got to learn how to make yourself happy and be content with who you are. Scripture teaches us that our contentment and our confidence comes from our relationship with God. It doesn't come from relationship with others. And if I am in a relationship, and maybe you've known somebody that where they're not dating somebody or their relationship is bad, then all of a sudden they're bad, everything is down, everything is horrible, and life is based upon their relationships. I just want to encourage you, our confidence, our joy, our peace does not come from our spouse. It comes from our relationship with God. Because now when I can have confidence, peace, and joy from God, I can then enter into and I can bring that into my marriage, not really waiting for my wife to be confident and happy and have joy. I get to bring that into the relationship as well as she does as well. So it's only when we're living out of a whole healthy soul that we can love and serve one another well. Here's another one that I think is very common for most of us here, is this right here, is that we struggle to stay in a lasting relationship because we're not prepared. We're not prepared. How many of you remember your wedding vows? How many remember your wedding vows? This is good. How many of you wrote your wedding vows? Anybody write your wedding vows? You guys wrote your wedding vows? Yeah. How many stuck to traditional wedding vows? You're just like, hey, pastor, you figure it out. Last thing I got to do. Like, I just need to rent a tuxedo and just make it happen. Yeah. That's awesome. I love sitting with couples and they're like, what do I do? And I'm kicking the guy under the table. I'm like, I got you. Thank God. I, so-and-so, take you, so-and-so, to have and to hold. Hold on, what? To have and to hold. Oh, that sounds so sweet, doesn't it? After 10 years of marriage, you're like, get off of me, I'm hot. I'm not trying to have and to hold you from this day forward, okay? I'm hot, I'm menopausing, get off of me. For richer or poor. Hold on, what happened to the bank account? Why'd you go and buy a tool set? Don't nobody need no tool set around here. My dad can fix stuff. For rich or poor. Oh, wait a minute. For better or worse. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I thought marriage would look like with you. Why? Because we were ill prepared. We were not prepared for this. Nobody told me about this. In sickness and in health. Oh, my wife does so many great things. When she gets sick, the whole world comes crashing down. She's sick right now, so all of y'all that are laughing around, you getting sick. Oh, she got like H1N1 or something. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I don't know what she got. Influenza B or something. You need to chew on some more tree bark or something. But it's one of those moments, I don't know if you have that in your relationship where it's like, for me, when I get sick, it's kind of like one of those things, like growing up, it was like, well, suck it up. But for my wife, when she got sick, her mom would make these orange juice glasses. And on the rim of the glass, she would put sugar. Oh, yeah, real healthy here. Don't sweat it, babe. Mom put Kool-Aid on top. It was called margaritas. But nice sugar on top and have these, and Mom would just take care of her. But it sounded so good, like when you gave your wedding vows that day, like to have and to hold, from this day forward, for rich or poor, better or worse, sickness and in health. And it's like, well, you want me to get a glass and put sugar on? How is the sugar supposed to stay? You've got to wet it, and you've got to put it in the sugar, and then you've got to put some orange juice on. You want me to call your mom? Let me give you some examples of some wedding vows that I actually did. This may actually make me a bad pastor because I let these people say this. Now, after this sermon, I really contemplate, like, hey, just send me your vows. Let me read it. That's stupid, okay? You don't really mean that. Here's one. I promise to check in with you and listen with intent and compassion. Yeah, that lasted about a month. How about this one? This one's awesome. These are legitimate weddings that I've done. It's like, what were you thinking? I promise to never criticize or create negativity in our relationship. That didn't even make it past the honeymoon. What, do you want to lay around all day? One guy was a nurse, and so on his wedding. On his wedding day, he told his wife, he wrote it all out, and it was just stupid. And so it's like, I promise to come home and take care of you. And I promise that if you're ever sick, that I will be your full-time nurse. I will mend every broken thing, and I will put Band-Aids on your boo-boo. I will check your heart. I will check your temperature, and I will always do this. It's like, listen. That's going to take about 3 weeks. You know what's going to happen? Listen, I just got done doing that all day long. You can go to urgent care, okay? If you're that sick, go to urgent care. I don't need to be checking your I don't get a Band-Aid. But you said on our wedding day that you would take a Band-Aid and you would put Band-Aids on boo-boo, and I've been waiting here. The problem is this, is we have thought that promises overrule preparation. Because I promised something really good, and it sounded good, that promise overrides preparation. Now listen, nobody wants to go see a doctor who promises to take care of you, but doesn't have the credentials. Yeah, come on in. I absolutely. Heart specialist right here. Yeah. I love to have all that. So show me your credentials. Well, I never went to school for it. I'm not prepared to do open heart surgery. I'm not prepared for that. So therefore, many of you would say, if I'm not prepared to do that, you would say that I'm unqualified. Sometimes people enter into a relationship and they're not qualified because they're not prepared. And we bought into this lie that, man, a promise will override preparation. When it comes to relationships, we operate from that premise that the promise replaces the preparation, but all of our experiences in life, all of us together would agree that that's a false statement. In the world of academics, sports, business, medicine, you name the field that you're in, all of us would say this, that preparation is the key to success. I just got done walking through this with my 8-year-old son in 3rd grade, and it's like, listen, we've got to be prepared. They're walking through times tables, and hey, we've got to be prepared for this. We've got to be, listen, if we can get ahead of it, we can be prepared. Listen, preparation is key. We've got to be ahead of this. And now all of a sudden he's realizing the more that I study, the more that I'm prepared, the better that I do. He's in the 3rd grade. What about relationships? The better that I can get myself, the more that I can better myself, and I can better the issues and the situations in my life. Not just stay fixed on a promise, but to actually get better myself. So I can be ahead of things. I can be prepared for things. Preparation is the key. One more thing real quick. Let me give you this one. And this one's going to be for millennials when it comes to relationships. Actually, everybody. But this one might hurt. Here's a quick reason that it's hard for us is because we have a low threshold for relational pain. We have a low threshold for relational pain. Here's what I hear people say, Pastor, can we meet? Yeah, let's meet. Man, we're having a really hard time in our relationship, and things are getting a little rocky, and it's just really tough. And it's like, oh, wow, well, let's sit down, let's talk. And here's what I hear. I just don't feel like we're in love. Oh, you're not in love. Two things I do in a situation like that. I say, hey, talk to me about when you were in love. And I can watch the countenance on their face to tell you where the direction we're going to probably move in. I can tell you in that moment whether we talk about divorce or we're going to have to talk about getting some help and moving forward. Because you can tell when people are like, well, when we first started, and all of a sudden there's a smile. Well, when we first got together, you tell them. No, you tell them. We met in a bar. We met online. Farmers only. You hear people, they'll tell stories, they'll be like, well, and you see them light up, and it takes them back. And here's the thing, it's like, man, can you get back to that moment and remember when you first fell in love? Remember what it was like and get back to that point? But here's what I would say is for some of us, people go, well, I'm just not in love. I'm out of this relationship. I'm not happy, and so I need to leave, and I need to find someone else. I need to find someone new. I need to find somebody who makes me happy. All because why? We had one argument, one issue, one problem. Remember that first problem you had as a married couple? Who'd you call? Did you call home? Did you call mom? Did you call dad? Did you call your best friend? Who'd you call? I can't believe him. I can't believe her. They did this. She said that. He did this. And all of a sudden, we're like, I just don't know if this will work. And we're ready to bail based off of one argument. Why? Because we're not happy. Let me be abundantly clear. This might be the way the world thinks, but this is not the way that Jesus thinks. And before I read the words of Jesus, I want you to know it's very simple. You'll be tempted to dismiss it, and all I'm going to do is just challenge you. Just hang on. Hang with me for a second. Because I know some of you will be like, yeah, that's it? Yep. Here it is. Let's read it out loud. It's going to be up on the screen. John 13:34. We'll read it all out loud together. So now I am giving... What the heck is wrong with you? We're going to read out loud with our voice. Here we go. Ready? John 13:34 says, so now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other. This is awesome. Right there it is. And some of you are like, really? All that prep work for a whole week and that's all you did? That's as much study as you got out of the whole week, and this is what you brought to us? I brought a friend here, and this is what you got. Love each other? That's what you gave? But watch this. I want you to see this. I know it's simple. You'll dismiss it, but what Jesus does here is really remarkable. If you're not careful, it's going to slip right by you. Well, look up on the screen. And what Jesus is doing is he takes this word that we use as a noun, and he makes it a verb, and he turns it from a feeling into an action. And Jesus is saying, listen, I know you think love is like falling into something like a pool and out of like a chair. But falling in love is not this noun. Falling in love is a verb. It's an action word. And so that we would do the actions of love for each other. It's not just, hey, just passive, like, I love you. You're my friend. I love you. Noun, he's saying, love each other. Verb. Do it in an action sense. And what happens is when you bring people back to that place where you go, tell me how you fell in love. You know what it always comes down to? Action. We used to go for nice romantic walks. What we used to do is we used to gather, we would get together and we would go do fun things downtown, or we would do the action. We would go to the movies, and you know what? He was so cute when we were dating. He would do this for me. Now, forget it. He would never do it. What happened? We've lost the action of love, and we've allowed it to become a noun. Can I just tell you this? There comes a moment in every single relationship, in a marriage and dating, engaged couple relationship, that all of a sudden there's this line in your relationship where it has a tendency to move from action word to over into the noun. So we can go from this verb into a noun, and there's a tendency. And can I just tell you this? Here's what happens: is some relationships cross over into the noun, and when it does, that's where people begin to start feeling the pull, and the D word comes up. And I'm just thinking maybe we should get it. Here's what happens: is we forgot the actions of love, and we've gotten to the noun of love. And Jesus is saying, listen, no, I'm giving you a new commandment. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to just talk about love. I love you. I love you too. I want you to show love. But Pastor, you don't know what she even said this morning. Pastor, you don't know what on our way here, you want to talk about love each other? He was giving the finger to people on the road. How's that love? Hey, go Eagles. Everybody's number one. Listen, I get it. We all got our issues. But you notice what each other does? Yeah, but he and but she. But Jesus says, listen, love each other as your neighbor. Love one another. Listen to what he says. Do unto others as you would want them to do to you. It doesn't matter what they've done. What if you could love somebody, but they did? No, there's no buts. Leave the but out. And love each other. Love your spouse. But he said, and she said, and they did, and this is what happened. Yeah, but what would happen if you took an action step? You put love into an action step, and you began to work those things out. Let me just put it to you like this. Outside of a dating or engaged and married couple, what about at work? I just got this guy, just work with him, it just drives me up a wall. I can't stand this person. I have a hard time with this person. What would happen if you actually started stepping into action steps? You took action steps to show kindness, to show love, to show the love of Christ in people's life. What would happen in that relationship? According to what Jesus is telling us, is that it begins to bring us together. Remember the very beginning, Adam and Eve. The enemy comes in, and his whole goal is to get himself in between Adam and Eve and create division. But if we can do action steps, love, the way Jesus says, here's what it does, is it brings two together. It brings people together. That's the whole goal. Because we were created to live in this relationship that God has for our lives. And so some of us, what you would say is, man, hey, listen, I've lost that love and feeling. In our relationship, remember that song? You lost. Here's what I would say is it doesn't have to be gone. Whoa. That's why they don't let me sing. Jesus is saying if you have lost that loving feeling, you can get it back in your relationship. You can get those things back. Let me just talk to you for a second. It's going to take action steps. It's going to take actions of love. And if you want to keep the feeling of love noun, keep doing the actions of love verb. And the foundation for staying together, for staying in love, is to make love a verb. I got all the guys' attention. Like, I heard that. The foundation for staying together is to make love. He said it. I heard it. Let's go. This is a great time to pray and dismiss, Pastor. I know. All the single people are like, I have no idea what he's talking about. Huh? The foundation for staying in love is to make love a verb. Go back to what brought you together. Go back to what you fell in love with. Go back to those things. It's easy for us to dismiss those things, to grow away from it. You know, my wife and I always laugh. And it's like, you think you're funny. You're not funny. But when we were dating, you thought, you're just so funny. Now I'm not funny. You thought I was funny? Now I'm not funny. Which one is it? And my kids are over there. He thinks I'm funny, and then the other one's laughing. He thinks I'm funny. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You've got to get back to the place where you made love an action verb. And you just remember the things that got you there. Maybe this week it's one of those things that you just do. Like, oh man, this is just what hey, you remember when we used to do this? Guys, let me just tell you, take the lead. Valentine's Day is coming up. Amazon Prime really works well. Just do what I'm telling you to do. Order now. Do it on the phone. It'll work. Jesus didn't stop there, though. Jesus didn't just stop with, hey, love each other. Here's what happens. Many of us read that passage on the screen and we stop there and we go, yeah, Jesus commanded us to love one another, love one another, love one another, love one another. Jesus said, love one another, love one another. Jesus, and we're just going to love one another. We're just going to love one another. We're just going to love one another. But the truth is, here's the rest of the verse. Verse 34 says, so now I'm giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Why? How? Here it is. Just as I have loved you, you should love others. See, many of us, we've taken our cues from culture. And culture says, listen, if you're not happy, bail the relationship. Just bail. Just jump out of that relationship. And I've watched people do this. I've literally counseled people who have sat in my office. I've sat across from coffee shop tables with people. I've talked over the phone with many couples that have walked through this similar situation. And I'm not happy, and so they leave. And their spouses, like if you were to rate it from a 1 to a 10, their spouse is an 8. And they're a solid 8. But it's that 2% that just frustrates you and it just bothers you. And so you find somebody else who has the 2% that you're lacking, that you're wanting in life. And they have the 2%. And I've watched this where people have left an 8 to get with the person who had the 2%, only to find out that they only had 2%. You left an 8 to get with the 2. And then eventually what happens is you look for somebody who has an 8 or a 9. And it becomes a cycle that we fall into. And really what Jesus is saying is, listen, why don't you just get back to the real meaning of love? Action steps. Why? Why would I do that? Remember, this is exactly how he loved us. And because this is how I loved you, Jesus set it up as an example. I love this. If you think about it in this lens, Jesus' whole life was set up as an example for you and I, especially when it comes in this whole idea of relationships. How did he make love a verb? The Bible says that he gave, that he served, and he sacrificed. For who? You and me. He gave up his life for you and I. He served the people. He sacrificed. That is what action steps look like. The foundation for a lasting, loving relationship is 2 people who give, who serve, who sacrifice for each other. The foundation of a lasting, loving relationship is 2 people who give, who serve, who sacrifice for each other. Can I just pause here and do a gentle, just gentle talk? Over the years of marriage, oftentimes it's very easy to give, to serve, to sacrifice for ourselves. And we forget about our spouse. Or we give, we serve, we sacrifice for our kids, and we forget about our spouse. And I did this one time where I talked about how eventually what we need to remember is the kids leave, the spouse stays. You got to remember that for the future. Kids leave, spouse stays. So you can put all your eggs in one basket with your kids, and when they're gone, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to look over at your spouse and go, who are you? And that's that moment where couples really struggle the most, is when their kids leave and they're looking at each other like, I don't really know you. Because they made it all about their kids. Man, my kids know that Mom and I have date nights. We're always looking for babysitters. Free, of course. We got one right there. That's the Wednesday night. I need a Friday night. I got the blacks in the back. Friday night, sweet. I know your heart was lifted. Your hand wasn't, but your heart was open to it. I got it, baby. We on a roll here. Leave them and go. My kids know, like, I'm gonna date mom. They're also gonna date mom. Mom's gonna show them what it's like to go on a date, how to treat a woman. And so here's what I would say is, we've got to get back to those action steps of what love is. And Jesus modeled it when he gave, he served, and he sacrificed. And that's what it looks like when we do that for each other. Not just for myself, but for our spouse. Can I just say this? The greatest thing that you could teach your kids is what that looks like. My kids get upset. We talk about, well, you know, Kelly Black's going to watch The Boys today. No, not Kelly. Doesn't watch the kids. I was just throwing it out there. Why do you guys have to go? Why can we go with you? No. Why? Because I love your mother. The only reason we had you is because I love your mother. Listen, it wasn't because I like kids. I like my wife. I'm just telling it like it is. The greatest thing I could do for my kids is show them action steps. No. Hey, this is because mom and we go out on a date because I love your mom. And so we're going to do that. And so you're going to behave. But I don't want you to go. I don't care. Eventually, you're going to go. She's going to be here. I need to keep her happy. And what's he going to do when he gets older? Same thing. I hope. Greatest thing I can do is model that for our kids. To give, to serve, and to sacrifice. I know some of you are thinking, well, but my spouse doesn't deserve that. They don't deserve that right now. I've been hurt by them. I don't trust them. I'm having a hard time with them. Here's what I would say. If Jesus was your marriage counselor, you'd be screwed. If Jesus would just simply look at you and be like, okay, but are you? Sorry, Lord. You'd be messed up. You would, okay. Wouldn't go well for you. Thank you. Yes, Lord. I think if Jesus was your counselor, here's what he would say. Okay, great. I hear you. You don't trust them. You don't like them. You're not happy with them. You don't love them. I think he would just be like, okay, but are you loving them, verb? Well, no, because they don't deserve it. Wait a minute. They don't deserve it? You didn't deserve it when I gave, when I served, when I sacrificed. You didn't deserve it. You still want to go down that road? Well, but but they did this. I get it. You're talking about love as a noun. I'm talking about love as a verb. When's the last time you loved your spouse as a verb? Yeah, but they did this and they don't deserve it. You still don't deserve it. Because the Bible says that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. You know what it says? You don't deserve it. He could have easily looked at God the Father and just said, hey, listen, they don't deserve it. Look how jacked up that one is. Look at John. You see John? You really want me? He's a prime example why I shouldn't die on a cross. Look at that guy. Seriously? He's not going to appreciate it for a long time. He doesn't deserve it. Look at that. Look at you. Look at this. Look at that. And here's what happens. The Bible says, listen, Romans, but while we're still sinners, while we're still jacked up, not perfect, not precious, while we were still sinning, he gave, he served, he sacrificed. So maybe today you're in the midst of a battle in your family and you're just like, can I just encourage you? Do a self-evaluation of yourself today. Not your spouse, not any relationship that you're in, that you're having conflict in, issues in. Just ask yourself, man, how am I doing? How am I doing with showing love? Action. Jesus is saying, listen, what I'm telling you to do is love each other as a verb. Turn the feeling into an action. Do something about it. This is where every relationship has got to get into. And I'm telling you, I sit with couples all the time, and it's like, yes, you got married because of a feeling. Now is the pivotal moment in your life where you stop going based off of a feeling, and you've got to make it into a verb. You've got to turn it more now than ever before into an action step. If you want your relationship to be lasting and loving, turn it now and start thinking action steps for them. Whether they deserve it or not, start thinking here and now. So here's homework for you. Next week, my wife and I are going to be talking about marriage. It's going to be amazing. Babe, why don't you come on up? Yeah. Didn't tell her about that. We'll have conflict later today. It'll make it into a sermon next week. Wait, you got H1N1. Hold on. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, can I just tell you what you'll find out next week is I'm not the best at this. The next week, man, it'll be like full exposure here. Not really. Not like that. I meant, never mind. The microphone can crackle at any moment now. Man, my wife will be honest with you. And that's the one thing I told her. I was like, man, just talk, be honest. And just talk about, like, we walk through struggles. I am not the best. If you ever think, like, oh, he's just so great. I just wish my husband was like him. Listen, I will fail you faster than he would. Okay? I'm just as jacked up as you are and he is put together. I just have to stand in front of you and talk about it. There's no perfect person other than Jesus. There's no perfect relationship. We all walk through the issues and problems. But at the end of the day, we still have to stand side by side and walk through these things. That was my butt. You told me not even to add that into the series, and now you get a little handsy over here. Dang, God. I'm going to move that Friday night, Sunday night. Tonight, Super Bowl. All right. So here's what happened. I'm going to definitely get in trouble. We've got to learn that the key to having a lasting relationship is to make love a verb. Turn it into action steps. So right where you are, would you take a moment, close your eyes, bow your heads. And I want you to think. Think of that person in your life. Maybe it is a spouse, coworker, friend, family, sibling, parent, somebody in your life. And maybe you've got to take some action steps. Maybe you've got to be the one who leads it here. Not them, you. Turn the feeling of love into an action. Do something. Do something. Do something. Do something this week. Do something. Do something. Do something like you used to. If it's in a marriage relationship, do something that you used to. As corny as it might be, as weird as it might be, as funny as it might be, as romantic as it might be. Just do something. Do something. Do something. Give. Serve. Sacrifice. Move past the feeling of action. Doesn't matter if there's tension. There's a natural tension that every couple experiences, and it's pushing you past that noun into a verb. This week, look for opportunities. Let this become a new foundation for your relationship. I want to encourage you to commit to coming back over the next few weeks and grow your relationship into a loving, lasting one. Set yourself, set your family, set your kids up for success. Set your career up as we talk about how to have a healthy, happy relationship.